Well, hello there. Welcome to the Obi Thorn Alliance. I'm Jacob.
I'm Luke, and we're the YouTube channel that offers non-biased opinions from that of two perspectives. We've got Jacob on the autism spectrum and myself who is not. And what are we doing in today's video, Jacob?
We are doing a top 5 Netflix original series like we did with the Disney Plus.
Yeah, so if you like this video or you want to see what we did with Disney Plus, check that out on the channel. We'll put the link at the end of the video. And if you like our content, don't forget to like and subscribe as we put out new content multiple times a week. So moving into the rules for this one, we decided to rule out limited series because we've done a limited series top 5 and we both really like limited series. So we thought it was a bit biased that our top 5 would probably be infiltrated by a lot of limited series. So we've gone with Netflix originals. They didn't have to have started at Netflix. They just have to be owned by Netflix currently. So there will be a few shows that will appear that have started elsewhere and then been bought by Netflix. So that's cool, and we've included that. So do you want to go with your number 5 first and then me?
Okay. So with number 5, I went with Archive 81. And with this show, this was probably the most engaging and really enjoyed the concept. So basically the main character, he loves to watch tapes and his main goal is to work out what happened to his family. So basically this rich person invites him to this suspect place, this suspect house, and then he starts watching tapes, and this is where a different timeline happens when it follows the other main characters. So it's really cool with these two different aspects. It's probably my favorite show of the year, but it's hard to give it any high. You got to be critical when it comes to making lists, and unfortunately it got cancelled, so it can't get any higher. But I would still highly recommend it, and I think the acting performances were amazing, and I think it's worth watching if you want something different and unique.
I've been wanting to watch this. I've seen the trailer for it, and from what you've told me about it, it's a very interesting concept that I'd like to give a look at. At number 5, I've gone with Atypical. Atypical for me was a very good show in the beginning. It had a couple of seasons towards the end that I think
it's lost its way.
Yeah, I think it lost its way and it changed the formula of what it was doing well, and then it finished okay. So that's why it's going to be at 5. The premise of Atypical is we follow a young man who's on the autism spectrum, quite high functioning, and he has an obsession with penguins and going to the local aquarium to visit the penguins. He wants to find love. That's the premise of the first season, which it kind of moves away from that, or he does find love, so it doesn't become as important. And it follows his journey through finishing high school to eventually moving into college. The show, when it focuses on the main character, it's at its best, or the main character's best friend. But then when it moves towards his sister or the relationships between his parents, that's when it loses its way and it's less interesting. But in essence, when it focuses on the main character, it's a very good show, which I would recommend, but can't be any higher than 5 just because I think it had a dry season and it hurt its ratings.
I definitely agree with you with that. My number 4 is Mindhunters. And this would have to be one of the best police crime show that would have to be on the streaming services. Basically, the concept is that the FBI, this is like early 60s, so people don't know the terminology about serial killers yet. This is us learning about how the FBI learned about that. And this is us learning about like different serial killers and how the FBI built, and really awesome to see this show. Probably I would highly recommend anyone watching it. And unfortunately, the creator of the show is not wanting to make more. It's kind of in hiatus, the show, so it can't get high on the list. But excellent acting, excellent premise, and I think it's one of the best shows that Netflix have done. But unfortunately, we're not going to get a conclusion. But it's based on real events, so you can do your research of what happens. Yeah.
That's another show that I've heard only good things about that's on my list to watch. I do have an interest in serial killers and true crime drama, so the fact that this is a mixture of true facts and fiction to add a storyline to it, it sounds really interesting, so I will get around to that at some point. At number 4, I've gone with Sex Education. So this is a highly watched and popular Netflix show. It's set in England. The timeline of it, it's set in modern times, so it's like 2001, 2002. But it plays with your mind a bit because all the characters tend to dress like they're in the 80s.
Okay.
It just throws me off a little bit, but they're not. They're just a very trendy town. So the idea of this is we've got the main character. He's a teenage boy. He's experimenting, looking for love, and his mother is a famous sex therapist, and she's written lots of books. And his dad as well has had the same similar field. So he's always had his mum very open about sex and what's normal and what's normal, what's natural, what's fine, and he's always found that a bit confronting, but he's learnt a thing or two from her. So he then takes it on to realizing that kids in his school, experimenting with sex and don't know what they're doing. They're having problems, whether it be sexually related or relationship related. He becomes their therapist by setting up a stall inside an abandoned bathroom and charging people an hourly rate to speak to him. As the seasons goes on, that changes a bit because people find out about it. He's not allowed to do it, and then the storyline evolves. But that's the premise of why it's called Sex Education, and it's coming of age story, teen drama. Not too much drama. It's funny. It's very much about like sex education, as the name gives it. So I
Do you
think
think they get the educational part right?
I think so. I think it's quite factual, and it's not misleading, and I think it's a way of adding like the sex ed you may not have got at school in a way that's entertaining, that people would watch and actually could learn from. And I think that was the intention of the show, that they wanted it to be factual so that people weren't getting misled by things that they read on the internet, instead getting it from is Netflix a credible source? Probably not, but the writers have made it their priority to actually be educational and factual in the information they provide. So I think it's quite a good show. Have you seen it?
No, not yet.
No, I think it's good. It's more because it's unique. Whether or not it's unique and entertaining, is it amazing? No, but it's it's worthy of being 4 on my list, I think.
My number 3 is Cobra Kai. This is a example of how you tell a story about a movie and make it better in a TV show. This would have to be one of the best series about a movie that I have ever seen, bringing the main characters from the movie series and making the villain from that movie the perceived villain, the good guy, as Johnny and Denny. And seasons 1 to 3 were amazing television, but unfortunately season 4, in my opinion, just let it down and dropped on the list. If season 4 was as good of quality, it would probably be number 1 or number 2, but you making these lists, you gotta be critical. But besides that, this is one of the most amazing Netflix originally being on YouTube, and I think they chose a good show to buy out of all the shows that they had to choose from. And I would highly recommend anyone watching it, if you haven't yet, from new characters coming in to seeing old characters. I do feel like the point of where the show is heading, they keep changing the characters' motives and they make crease, who's the villain. He's a good guy, and where people's motives heading, it's like complete 180. That's kind of the problem of where the show is heading, and they keep giving people different motives, and I'm confused of where the show's going to head. So hopefully they fix that problem. Can't say more enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'll talk about it another time. So I don't want to give it away. So number 3 on my list, I've gone with Big Mouth. So Big Mouth is an animated series that was invented by Chris Kroll, Nick Kroll, that's his name. So it's loosely based, well, it's a very out there wild cartoon. So it can't be too accurately based on his upbringing, but he, grew up in he's Jewish family, grew up in Brooklyn. It's very much based upon what it was like to be a Jewish boy growing up and being related about sex. This show is crazily animated. It has, demons. It has, devil-like creatures. It's got heaps of things in it, but the premise is, again, it's about sex. So these kids are going through puberty, and they experiencing hormones. So they then get given a hormone monster, which is something that no one else can see. Only they can see, but somehow they share hormone monsters, and it's the same one, but they don't see it when they're talking to each other. So it gets a bit confusing there. But they're getting given advice from these hormone monsters, are basically these horny creatures that just give them continual bad advice. And I guess it's a metaphor of, when growing up and hormones are taking over, kids will make decisions based from coming from the wrong place. And that's what this does. And it always implies something like if they get nervous, there's some kind of creature that visualizes what nervousness would be like, and it talks to them and makes them anxious. And it's ultimately about mental health, but in a really wild and funny way. But the best part of the show is it just has so many outrageous one-liners that makes it funny. So the progression of the story is okay, the events are okay, but is just hilarious because of the one-line comedy that you get, particularly from the hormone monsters. So if you're into animated series like South Park, Family Guy, American Dad, it's right down your alley.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
My number 2 is Lucifer, and this would have to be one of the best character studies of how Lucifer is the devil. He is the king of hell, but he actually hates being that job description of how it's depicted in the Bible. He actually prefers being, a funny comedic person that owns the bar, and how the show progressed is great character develop. Originally it wasn't on Netflix, but Netflix bought the rights from season 3, and it has a satisfying conclusion. It's finished now. It has 5 seasons, and I think being second place, it deserves being there. Cobra Kai probably would have been second, but because of season 4, and Lucifer as a character, probably one of the best characters on television from Netflix, and I would highly recommend anyone watching it, from different characters that we get to see from heaven and how, and I really enjoyed experiencing the growth from the character from season 1 to season 5, and I guess you could argue that they could have ended it better and make a season 6, but for what we got, I thought it was a pretty good ending.
Yeah, show, again, I've heard lots of good things about it. It took me a while to kind of understand it until I saw a few episodes, but it's not quite for me, so it didn't make my list. At number 2, I've gone with Cobra Kai. So as previously mentioned, I'll talk about it a bit more. Jacob's already summarised it, but I agree. It's one of the rare times when they've done a sequel to something and it's been better. And I think they did a really good job of twisting the story where the villain became the good guy. But they've now gone so far where villains and good guys swap so much that their story arcs are... I'm not confused, but I just don't buy it. People are just... But they kind of make out you're either good or bad. You can't be in between. And then they build up these rivalries between characters that they can't seem to let go of. And I feel like as adults, they would have moved beyond that. but very entertaining. I look forward to new seasons whenever it comes out. Sadly, even though I look forward to it, I think with every passing season, the product is getting diluted and it's getting worse.
Yeah.
I think the first season was really, really good. It got me excited for the second season. The second season was really good, and it gets you excited for the next season, but every season since has just gotten a little bit worse, and I don't know where it's going and where it could end through their age. You know, they're going to be phased out of competing in karate tournaments. I don't know where it goes, and can you continually keep making content about the same rivalry and karate competition? Maybe not. And to keep it going, they keep bringing back villains and ex-characters, but then they like amplify how evil they are. And it's entertaining, yes, likely no. So maybe Cobra Kai should have ended a few seasons back, but I will continue to watch them as they come out because I do find them entertaining. I just fear it's going to dilute its own product if it goes too far.
I'd agree with that.
And what have you got at number one?
My number one is the fateful original that Jason Bateman created and directed himself is Ozark. So I think Ozark is compatible to Breaking Bad. It has that family trying to do the right thing that got caught up in the mess of them not actually doing the right thing but becoming the villains. It's one of those greatest show that you're rooting for the villain and you want them to succeed, but you actually want them to die as well. It plays with your emotions, and I really enjoyed the 4 seasons that we got. 4 seasons with 2 parts, and really enjoyed the emotions. The ending, that's probably the one thing that was a little bit suspicious about, because it did go, it was kind of the ending like the Sopranos ending, like you actually don't know what happened with the ending, you can only determine with your own mindset. And I would highly recommend anyone, if you're a Jason Bateman fan, I think you would really enjoy it, and I think it definitely deserves number 1 spot, because as a Netflix original, it was on the list and it didn't get cancelled. It actually finished what I think deserves praise, and I can't say highly more about Jason Bateman. Did an amazing job, and yeah.
I've seen 2 seasons of Ozarks, and I didn't mind them. I felt it was very similar to Breaking Bad, and I watched Breaking Bad, and I found Breaking Bad. I wouldn't watch Breaking Bad a second time. Let's put it this way. It was good, but it got very dry. And the more I watched Ozarks, I feared the same thing was going to happen, so I lost interest. So I might go back. I just might need to watch a few recaps to remember where I was in the storyline. But seeing Jason Bateman play a different type of role was quite cool.
Yeah.
I like the premise of it. It's just very close to Breaking Bad. If it came out before Breaking Bad, I have no doubt that it would have been considered better than Breaking Bad.
I think it is better than Breaking Bad. I know that's probably a big call to make, but I think it's better.
Yeah, Breaking Bad just is rated like the number 1 series. I don't know how, but it is. So people love Breaking Bad. I like it too, but I don't think it's the best. So I'm going to move to my number 1, which is one of the staples of Netflix that most people have seen, and is one of the most talked about shows in history for sure.
Can I have a guess?
Yeah, have a go.
13 Reasons Why?
Yeah, that's who I'm going. I'm going 13 Reasons Why. So you've watched 1 season of it. I've completed it.
Good choice.
I do have a lot of problems with this show.
Season 1 was good.
But as Jake just mentioned, season 1 was so good that it's hard for me to just... Everything it did after that, I still like season 1 so much and think it was such a really cool concept. You know, a character has taken her life, and then through making tapes she made before them, like her confessions as to why she did it, the tapes were given out to people, and then they got to hear why they were a factor in her taking her life. It's really unique. It touches on so many topics. And the way it was structured, that, you know, like we know at the start she passed away, but we're seeing flashbacks of why, but then the flashbacks tie in with the timeline of what's going on. So there's kind of 3 timelines in a way. Like there's the timeline in which she made the tapes, the timeline of what the tapes were made about, and there's the timeline of them listening to the tapes. So it's really cool and clever. The other seasons are okay, but they get a bit far-fetched, and I feel like the ending was unsatisfying. But even though it sounds like I'm speaking badly of it, it had so many good parts in it that it's I think it's one of those series that everyone that has a Netflix account should at least watch.
I've often said, and we have spoken about it, I think it would have been better if they made it just a limited series, just one season, tell its story instead of milking it.
Yeah, definitely. The first season was so good in itself that it didn't require a second season, or the second season was fine. The second season followed the events after what was revealed in the first season, and that was cool. But then once that, you kind of drag in on, it's like, someone's dead, we find out why she killed herself. Now let's follow the person that was the reason she killed herself. That person then now dies. Let's now follow why he died. And then you just continually, someone dies, and you get then a season explaining why. And I know you try to repeat the process too much, and you went from having this epic product to then only adding more and more stuff onto it. But if I was going to say anything, watch season 1, and even if you stop there, you'd be hard to not think that was one of the best shows you've ever seen if you just watch season 1.
I would agree with you there. Season 1, it did have some problems, but all shows do, and I really enjoyed season 1. But knowing the information you've said, it kind of leaves no motivation to watch the other season.
Oh, you'll watch it and be entertained. That's the thing. I don't think through any season was like entertained. It was just like, no, that wouldn't have happened. No, there's no way they would have did that. You're like, why do they have to add that storyline? It just kept, like, they're just trying to be more epic and like up the ante, where ultimately it already started at the most ante you could get. So you were trying to up something that was already at the top. So then in the end it just looked bad. So, still the best show, in my opinion, on Netflix. Is the one I would recommend everyone and anyone to watch, even if you only see the first season.
Guess honourable mentions?
Yeah, so what are some of your honourable mentions?
Atypical, but in my opinion, from someone that is on the spectrum, I just felt like they moved away from what the show was about, and personally, I didn't want there to be a lesbian storyline. And yes, I know we live in a diverse society, but I just question, why did they need to do that? I still don't understand personally. And
well, I was going to say, the storyline is fine. It's the focus. It moved away from the main character. No longer was the main character once it moved to that. So if that storyline was there, but it was a side, that was fine. But they made it the main focus, which I thought was a bad choice. You don't make your main character no longer your main character.
Yeah, that's why I got frustrated.
Yeah. Other honourable mentions. The rest are kind of limited series shows that Netflix originals. I don't know. Netflix originals aren't my favourite, so I struggled to actually make the list. What are some other honourable mentions?
Probably Afterlife, When They See Us, yeah.
Yeah, so like When They See Us, really love, but for the sake of this, I wasn't going to include it because it's a limited series. The Last Dance is awesome.
Yeah.
Don't F with Cats. Like, these are all limited series. They're limited series on Netflix, awesome.
Truth be told.
Tiger King, great. Like, the limited series are really good, but they're not. Their normal series, Jacob has a strong opinion about how they like to cancel stuff.
Yes.
Like, they love cancelling stuff at Netflix.
Could do a video on that.
So my faith in Netflix and their series is quite low, and then my faith in their movies are even lower because there's not many good Netflix movies in my opinion.
Well, thank you for watching. We are a YouTube channel with 2 different opinions. Like and subscribe. Let the force be with you. Bye-bye.